SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by USA Pawn for all your tools, electronics, and firearms. USA Pawn, their mega store, over 30,000 square feet, I-55 McDowell Road. 6 locations in the metro area. Well, counting Vicksburg, Central Mississippi. How about that? USAPawn.com. Not your typical pawn shop. USA Pawn. Nick Fulton, our buddy. Got to track him down, see what he's up to. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Bank Plus, it's more than a name, it's a promise, as they have been throughout the pandemic. Live in the Bank Plus studio. I get the sense that our show is a topic of conversation on all the other shows throughout the day. I guess that's how it is when you're number one.
I was about to say, people don't look down the mountain and talk. They look up the mountain and talk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'll come in and see the text line, and it's Bo, 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 Bo.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Dude, people like to have a good taste in their mouth, so they say your name.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right, Blake.
Yeah, I'm here.
Evidently, they were comparing, like, cars or trucks to shows or something.
Dude, yeah.
I think it's pretty simple. You know, I drive a Range Rover.
Yeah. Creme de la creme.
Yeah. It's a 2010. It's the body style that's classic but super cool.
Yeah. The old school Rover, like my first car was a 98 Range Rover. So sick.
Yeah.
Had that hard body. That's why when I bought my Jeep a few weeks ago. It's like that new Jeep model is the old school Range Rover. It's like a similar body style, similar dimensions. Not quite as boxy, but very close.
Man, those things are like a tank.
Yeah, they're awesome.
I love it. Love it. All right, Out of Bounds, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. SEC Insider Hit brought to you by Eye Care Professionals and Dr. Kirk Jeffries and his team on Lakeland Drive. We want to welcome in our friend Dave Bartoo at CFB Matrix. Bartoo, what's happening, buddy?
What's up, Sunshine? I am going through the Breakfast of Champions this morning.
Yeah.
I am testing whether or not leftover barbecue chicken goes good with coffee, and guess what? It does.
Hell yeah, it does.
Oh man, my kids have gotten on this kick of wanting me to smoke something every week now, and normally smoking stuff, doing barbecue is kind of few and far between because everybody listening knows if you really do barbecue, it's half labor of love. It takes forever. You spend all this time, you brine your chicken overnight, you get up at 4 in the morning, this, that, and the other. And so usually when I do barbecue, I don't do like a dinner. I do enough to feed a congregation. So I got barbecue for a long time because I never know when I'm going to have time to do it again. And for whatever reason, this is the third week in a row, different meat, obviously, but third week in a row that we've had something out of the smoker. And so this morning it is a coffee and barbecue chicken breakfast. It's awesome.
All right. Any Baileys in the coffee or just straight coffee right now?
No, just out of straight coffee for me.
Okay. All right. All right. So look, we're throwing this out here, Bartoo. You didn't seem just super fired up about previewing Florida. It was almost like you were thinking the SEC East is boring. Is that fair?
No, I don't. I think part of it is just like, I don't know what the news of the day is down there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the team that's been on, for some reason, I keep seeing it on my Twitter feed a lot, and it popped up on a couple of magazine covers, was Michigan State. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Is there that little to talk about that we have to that we have to go over a has-been with a has-been coach in a conference where they're going to be, pretty happy if they, come in third. So no, we can go through anything. We can take calls. You know me, I'm 100% flexible on this stuff.
Well, let's go ahead and throw that out then. All right. So if you have a question for Bartoo, you know that the college football matrix is TLC, talent, location, coaching effect. We've had Bartoo on for 8 or 9 years. It's been a blast. He runs the numbers a different way. He made us start thinking a different way, which has been a lot of fun. But talent, location, coaching, TLC. That's the matrix. So if you have a question, 601-707-3750 on your team, LSU, Bama, Rebs, Dogs, whatever, Clemson, Ohio State. That's who I have as far as the leaders in the national championship. Bartoo and I were going back and forth texting, and I don't see a dominant SEC team this year coming out. I mean, will Bama be good? Absolutely. Will LSU? Yes. Will Georgia? Yes. Florida? Yes. And I think Auburn. But nothing, I don't think they'll be close to Clemson or Ohio State as far as dynamic QB and then enough talent and blah, blah, blah. We'll see. Who knows? I think this will be the third year, and I think, Blake, correct me if I'm wrong, the first time that Saban goes 3 years in a row without winning a natty since being at Alabama.
Since starting his run.
Since starting his run.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Since starting his 5 and 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
All right. Good deal. So, and it'll be rough in Alabama. So 601-707-3750. Do you want to walk through Florida, Bartoo, and then we may get into some other things?
I'm looking at it right now, and when you texted me, I started looking, because really, I think the first thing you got to look at with Florida is you have to look at what's Georgia's schedule as well, right? I mean, because other than, maybe Tennessee, I mean, can any of us visualize Tennessee winning that division?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, it's really, this division comes down to October 31st, right? Georgia, Florida. For the most part.
And who slips up outside of that date would be my follow-up to that. Like, that game will determine it, but also which team slips up again, because I don't think either of them is one loss, right?
And so you look at it, and there's a lot of common denominators, right? I mean, they're all going to play Kentucky and Vanderbilt, Missouri, and so forth. And the way I look at Florida is they had coaching continuity, right? Nothing changed from December 31st to today. And going into this year, nothing is going to change from a coaching standpoint. So I believe with everything that's happened in the last 6 months, I think that continuity might play a bigger factor, especially early in the season, than maybe other years. And so you look at Georgia and you look at Florida, and really in the first half of the season, the big game for both of them is a non-conference game. Georgia is going to Alabama. Florida gets LSU at home. And I think that's a world of difference right there, because that could very easily spell the difference in the entire division, because I'll take Florida beating LSU at home, and I'll take Alabama beating Georgia in Tuscaloosa, and there's a one-game spread before they even meet in October. And I think those are the real critical games there. But you also look at Florida, the tougher part of the schedule is early. They get Kentucky at home. They get South Carolina at home. They get LSU at home. They knock off, half of their division before they even meet Georgia. And I think from a schedule standpoint, they have a bit of an edge in terms of ability to win games. And be ahead of Georgia going into that Florida-Georgia game October 31st.
Wow, okay. So, and what's interesting about that, I do believe that Tennessee will be a lot better, and Bartoo asked the question, do you think that they'll win the East? But they've got a bad game at Oklahoma in week 2. That's at Oklahoma in week 2.
Right, but that doesn't count in the SEC standings.
Sure.
You got to throw that out.
I just meant like what we talk about with you as far as getting beat up and physicality index and things like that.
That's exactly. Now that's something else, because they're going to go at Oklahoma. 2 weeks later, they get Florida at home. 2 weeks after that, they go to South Carolina. 2 weeks after that, they're at Alabama. And that's even before they haven't even met Georgia yet. So, their schedule, their total schedule, if you look at all three, I think is much tougher, especially on the physicality side of it, than the other two.
Florida will play at Ole Miss October 17th. It's crazy. Mullen leaves the state, comes to Starkville year 1, plays in Starkville year 1, and year 3 will play in Oxford. When these teams don't play, but once every 8 years or whatever it is, which is
right,
unfortunate.
And that might be a total trap game too. That one right there, that Ole Miss game, because look at the games before they play at Ole Miss. They have at Tennessee, big division game. They go to South Carolina, another big division game. Or actually, they're at home against South Carolina. Then they're at home against LSU, which is going to be a monster football game. And then between LSU and then playing Georgia, they get Ole Miss. Be really easy to overlook Ole Miss. And I know Ole Miss isn't talented as your upper ones in the West or the East, but I really believe in the offensive and defensive coordinator ability at Ole Miss. That October 17th game, if you're looking at the Florida schedule, and I'm trying to go through here, that might be the biggest trap game on the entire schedule for them.
How about that? The Lane Train hosting Mullen on October 17th. And Blake jumped on that earlier. So Bartoo agrees with what Blake said about that game, Florida and Ole Miss.
Blake and I agreed. Oh, this show's over.
I know. I mean, good Lord, let's all just go home and start drinking. What do you think Florida has closed the gap enough to win this thing, to win the East?
To win the East? Talent-wise, I don't think they've closed the gap that much. I mean, Georgia's still just ridiculous in terms of their overall talent profile. But when it comes down to the secondary part of that, the coaching, am I taking Kirby Smart over Dan Mullen? No. Kirby Smart as a defensive coordinator, and why is it slipping my mind? I swear there's no Baileys in my coffee. Dude at Florida. I can see his face too. In terms of defensive coordinator, so you probably have Kirby there, but offensive coordinator wise, you're taking Dan over what Georgia has right now. So to me, 2 out of the 3 in the major coaching areas, and you go special teams, which you lean Florida as well. They have a higher grade special teams coach. So in the critical areas of field position and game calling. I think that's where the Florida has made up the gap, but I still give Georgia the talent edge in that, and even on a neutral field, I'd still take Georgia to win that football game because of it.
Okay, I got Florida winning the East, but let's go through the schedule, Bartoo. I just want you to go win-loss. If you want to weigh in on it a little bit, great. I mean, some of them you're not going to care. Eastern Washington, that's a W. All right, so second game, Kentucky at home.
Right. Yeah, at home. That's a W as well. Better coaching, better recruiting. You're at home. That's the trifecta that I'm always looking for in terms of really trying to lock a game down. So to me, if you're Florida, if you're contending for even the division, you're starting 3-0, right? I mean, if you're going to be that good, it's just going to be win, win, win. And there's really not even a reason to discuss Kentucky, as a viable competition. In terms of trying to fight for that division title. If you lose that game, then to me, I mean, your season's done.
All right, September 26th, it could get interesting for them. Jeremy Pruitt has continued to elevate the overall talent profile at Tennessee. September 26th at Tennessee. Bartoo.
So this is one we've talked about this before. Is the games you got to win. Your games you're going to lose, and then your 50-50s. And I would put this game in that 50-50. You're on the road. I think Tennessee, from a talent perspective, is very good. From a coaching standpoint, they do have continuity. This is year 3 for Jeremy now?
Yes.
So, there's continuity there. I slightly favor Florida in this because of the coaching and talent profile. Tennessee's still trying to recover from the attrition of 3-4 years ago. Even though they've recruited well in the mid-teens, they've lost just a ton of guys. So I don't think the talent profile really reflects the overall recruiting of the last 4 years. But so we'll put Florida at 3.5 wins right now. We'll just call that a 50-50. There's 3.5. And then we go to, week 5, October 3rd, at home against South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
There's a W right there. Better coach. Again, this is a lot like Kentucky. South Carolina's a little bit more talented on paper, but from a coaching standpoint, edge Florida, talent, edge Florida, obviously at home. So now we're sitting at 4.5 wins going into another 50-50 game, week 6, with LSU. And with LSU, we obviously have, you got defending national champions, but they lost, in my opinion, their 2 most important guys in the program, their offensive and their defensive coordinator in this situation. They bring in Bo Pelini, which I can't. Can you believe we're saying that? I mean, how many times have you said Bo Pelini is going to be at LSU? So it's we haven't. To me, I haven't been on enough shows and talked enough to even get used to saying Bo Pelini LSU.
That's a good point.
Which I think is going to kick ass. Is there like a betting line when he absolutely explodes in a media conference or something like that? When he just goes nuts?
Well, it'll be after that game because Dan Mullen's going to boat race him on October 10th.
So with LSU, and my concern really with LSU is the offense. There's so many people that think that, well, they figured out the offense last year. No, the offense just went to the Carolina Panthers, dude. You're the guy who ran the offense before Joe Brady was 55th in scoring efficiency 2 years ago. You can't tell me after 40 years of coaching football that in 9 months he learned everything from Joe Brady and he's a new man. I don't buy it at all. I don't buy it one bit. So I do like Florida, even though LSU, from a talent perspective, I like LSU's talent. Even though they lost a lot of it, there's still a lot of it, on the bench and has been recruited. I think the difference here is a coaching turnover. Not only do I think there's been a downgrade in coaching at both spots, you also have it early in the season. And we just don't know how much practice time everybody's going to get. So I'm actually more comfortable taking Florida to beat LSU at home than Florida winning on the road at Tennessee right now.
I like the way you're thinking. Next week at at Ole Miss, sorry.
At Ole Miss. So we're sitting at, what are we at? We're at 5.5 wins. We're at Ole Miss. Like I said, I think this is a big trap game here. We're going to bump it up to 6.5 wins. I think there's an argument you could make this a 50-50 because I do think this is a mental game. This is a really easy game for them to overlook. But again, Ole Miss, new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, still on the early half of the season, so slight edge there. I bet you the spread on this thing will might just be a field goal, 4.5 points. I could see something like that given the situation here. But we'll bump them up to 6.5 wins after that football game.
All right, take a week off. You've already picked cocktail party. You're going with Georgia, right?
Yep, and you got Florida.
Yes.
Yeah. So now we're still sitting at 6.5 wins, and now the schedule. Now the schedule eases for Florida. I mean, there's really nothing left except the last game.
Right.
Because at Vanderbilt, you're going to win that football game. You got Missouri at home, which I think there's a team that I think that I've heard a lot about with Missouri and Drinkowitz, and I'm like, dude, that dude had one good year taking over for Scott Satterfield. Do we really, really know how good of a coach this guy is? I mean, I don't think we do. I really don't. So if there is a bar that's being set in the East that you may want to knock down a bit, it's probably Missouri. So we're at 7.5 wins with Vanderbilt, 8.5 with Missouri, and then New Mexico State, 9.5, and then going on the road at Florida State. And quite frankly, with the hiring with Florida State bringing Memphis dude over, it's kind of an exciting game.
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, when is the last time we were able to really say that Florida State might actually be some fun, because college football is a lot better when games like that are at their highest level.
Okay. So is that 50-50?
I'm going 50-50 right now on the Florida State.
Okay.
Going 50-50. So that puts us at a 10-win season, adding those things up right there. Obviously high level and doing some rounding. But what's the line on Florida on their total right now? 9.5?
I'll let Blake look it up. I bet it would be 9.5.
It can't be 10. That's just that's.
Well, maybe 9. That's right.
You don't see that number reserved a whole lot there.
Hey, something I want to throw out at you. So you mentioned the way that Florida ends, and it is easy compared to other schools in the SEC.
Yeah.
Same thing with Georgia. They wrap up the season at Kentucky and then play Georgia Tech at home. All right, so one of those two teams are going to go to Atlanta, Bartoo. Alabama wraps up the season. They play A&M and then Auburn, and LSU plays at Auburn and at A&M. So depending on who comes out, that'll be the third week of a super physical game, the SEC championship game, whereas Florida and Georgia will not be playing as difficult a schedule down the stretch. The SEC evidently made Bama and Auburn change that because they used to be playing like Wofford and Georgia State the week before they played each other. I think that's something to look at, Bartoo. I've only got about a minute and a half, but your thoughts.
The Caesar Sportsbooks had both Florida and Georgia projected at 10 wins.
Okay.
See? Piece of cake, guys. Piece of cake, right? Now, which side do you go on there? That's ultimately what you're looking at. And in my opinion, I would just go under on Florida at 10 wins. Because I think it's a better bet that they be at 9 than being at 11.
I'd go over. Well, I just think they'll go 11-1 or 12-0. I agree with you. At Tennessee, he better be careful. LSU at home, and the cocktail party.
But there's only 2 true road games: Ole Miss and Tennessee,
and Florida State.
I mean, but in
the
SEC,
won't pack
to
it,
win
though,
the
right.
SEC.
I mean, Doak Campbell's just not like an SEC stadium. So you're making a good point. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and I like your point, Bo. Getting back to how these schedules finish up. Whether it's Georgia or Florida, in terms of a physical impact, big games, physically and mentally worn down. Certainly, Florida and or Georgia should be the fresher of the two going into that, because what you just said about Alabama, Auburn, A&M, coming down the stretch, that is a lot of tough football just to get into the SEC title game.
And Bartoo, we'll leave it with this as we wrap it up with a minute left. Bartoo, if Mullen gets through the cocktail party, he finishes at Vanderbilt, Mizzou at home, New Mexico State at home, at FSU. I mean, not quite a cakewalk with the FSU game, but darn near compared to what Georgia has to go through, Bama, LSU, and Auburn. I think
we
that's
always
something.
Talk about window of opportunities, right?
Yes.
Scheduling window of opportunity.
Yes.
This is Florida's window of opportunity type of schedule.
Hey, do you want to? How long do I have, Blake? I don't have enough time. We'll plug the business next time, Bartoo. Cool.
Cool.
Okay, buddy. See you, man.
Later, bro.
At CFB Matrix on Twitter. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Driven by RPT and Rick's Pro Truck in their new retail location, Gluckstadt, Madison County, spray and bed liners, lift kits. RPT, ricksprotruck.com. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.